Hey guys, Ollie here from the Roland Academy, and here's 4 tips in just over 5 minutes to help you with designing for UV. Tip 1. Loading the spot color and texture swatches. The process of designing for UV in Illustrator begins by loading in the spot color libraries that you'll need. The spot color libraries that you'll need specifically for designing for UV are the Roland VersaWorks library, which has swatches for the gloss, primer and white inks contained within the machine. And also the Roland swatches for texture are going to be needed as well, the Roland texture system library. And the location that we're going to get these from is this one here on the left. So when VersaWorks is installed, these swatches are installed alongside it. So this is the location here. And the location that we're going to need to copy them to so we can access them in Illustrator is on the right hand side over here. Now this depends on the version of Illustrator that you have. So where we have Illustrator 2020 here, if you have an older version, just substitute it for that instead and look for that particular file path. So we'll copy the swatches from the left hand side to the right, which you can see I've already done here. And then next we're going to open these up in Illustrator so we can start designing. To open the swatches as I've already done here on the right hand side, we just need to navigate to Window, drop down to Swatch Libraries, and then in here look for the Roland Texture Systems library and the Roland VersaWorks library. Once we've got these open, we're good to start designing. Tip 2. Using a bitmap image to generate a texture. Generating texture from a bitmap image is relatively easy in Illustrator. The thing that you need to start with is an image with high contrast, which is why I've picked this crack mud image that we've got here. The first step that I'm going to take is to name the layer that it's on as original, and I'm going to create an additional layer just using the plus button down here, and I'm going to call this one gloss. I'm then going to copy my image across, so I'm going to hold down Alt, click on this little node here and drop it across to the gloss layer. So now we've got the same bit of artwork on both layers. I'm then going to turn off the original layer so we keep that CMYK version, and now we can start to work on this gloss layer here. Our first step in turning this into a texture is to select our image and convert it to grayscale. So I'm going to click Edit, Edit Colors, and then Convert to Grayscale. This now means the design information or the color information within the design is just from a 0 to 1 basis, from 0 to black. This therefore replicates what you can do with your printer, which is either you can put down a small amount of gloss ink or you can use 100% of that channel, therefore building up a texture in some parts that's slightly higher than others. To now convert this into gloss ink information, we just need to keep it selected and then select our RDG_gloss swatch. What this now does is turns this into gloss ink information, and where the parts of the design are darker, that part will be raised up further than the lighter parts. And the bit you'll notice about this particular texture is actually it's the wrong way round technically at the moment, because we want these darker parts to sit further back and represent the cracks in the mud. To change that is really easy. So if we go to Edit and then drop down to our Edit Colors option, in here, we then have an option to invert colors, and this often has this warning in here, but if I click OK, now it's inverted, and now this is a true representation of our cracked mud texture. If we were to output this and print, say, 5 layers, we'd really start to see that appear. Tip 3, working with gradients. There are lots of really creative ways that you can work with the gloss ink within the machine, and another one of these is to create a raindrop style effect. And the way that you do this is by working with a gradient. So on the left hand side here, we have a circle that's been designed and it's filled with the gloss color. And what this would produce if it's built up in layers is something like this down below, where it would just be a kind of thick chunk that has quite squared off sides. If we wanted to create something that had more of a dome type finish, the way we would do this is by creating the gradient that you see here on the right. This then creates that kind of domed finish that you see here. In order to do that, all we need to do is select our circle here, hit G, which is the gradient shortcut in Illustrator, and then up at the top here we've got a few different options for our gradient. The one that we want to use is the radial gradient. So if I click that in here, you can see that I've already used the gloss color recently, so that's auto-populated. If it hasn't in its other colors, it's just a case of clicking one of the colors on here and then selecting our gloss from the right hand side over there. So we've got our gloss in the middle here. We also want to make this one on the outside gloss as well, so I'm just going to select that in here. And then the bit that we want to change is if we double click that, we want to change the opacity. So the one on the outside, we're going to make that 0. And the one on the inside, we're just going to double check, but that one's 100%. Now what we can play with here on this slider is how thick we want that center portion. So if we want there to be more of a build up in the middle and then more of a drop off at the edges, we can bring this to the right. If we want less of that and more of a smoother gradient or a sort of softer finish, then we can work with it that way. And that's how to create that rain droplet effect. Tip 4, working with texture swatches. Using the Roland Texture Systems library is a great way to add a little bit extra to your designs, whether it be for labels, packaging, or something else with a UV device. To work with these, firstly, we've got our artwork here, which is just a black box in this instance, and this is on our layer here called Original. I'm going to copy this box over to the gloss layer just by holding down Alt and clicking and dragging. On the gloss layer, I'm then going to select this box, and we've got our Roland Texture Systems library open here on the right hand side, which has 120 swatches in it, and just start to click through some of those, and you'll see that we've got everything from polka dots to stripes to all sorts of different patterns. We've got some stars as well. And these look really effective when they're printed. You can also create your own patterns as well in Illustrator, and there's lots of videos online to help you get started with that.